Hey guys, welcome to Hearns Hobbies. This is Kyle and we're going to be talking about water slide decals today. So we're going to be looking at how to apply water slide decals. So you'll find water slide decals in pretty much any kit that you'll get today. So water slide decals, a little bit daunting, but they're very easy to do. Once you get the hang of them, they can be pretty fun to do as well. I'm going to use microsol here. So what this does is this helps the decal settle into the model. So if you've got things like panel lines and whatnot, it will just help it settle into the panel lines and look like it's part of the paint job. And secondly, we will be using the micro set. So micro set's what then sets the decal in place, lets it dry nice and hard, so then it's protected. The other things we're going to need is a small paintbrush, self-clamping tweezers, which do make it a lot easier. You don't need them, but it makes things a lot easier. And then just your hobby knife with a fresh blade. To get started, first thing is we need to cut the decal out. So when cutting the decal out, you don't need to be too accurate because the decal will release from here. I always like to leave a little bit on here as well that we can grab. So now that we've got the decal cut out, so the next thing we need to do is the water slide side of things. So the reason they call these a water slide decal is because you put them in water and they slide off. So the water here, I use warm water because it helps. It releases the decal a bit quicker because I'm impatient, but we'll pop it in there for now. So while that's in there, next thing we need to do is prep our model for putting our decal on. So you want to make sure the surface is nice and clean. If it's a painted surface, it's always best for it to be gloss because it's a smoother surface for the decal to sit on. Cotton swabs are always handy for this part here. So just get your cotton swab and just dip it in your water, and then wherever we want to put our decal, so for the sake of this we're going to put it there. You just want to very lightly wet the surface, and that just gives the decal something to then grab to. So now our decal's sat in the warm water for about 30 seconds. Depends on the decal, depends on the brand, but usually 30 seconds is enough. So now what we do is we grab our craft knife, and we'll see here that the decal now moves freely. So we suss out where we want our decal, slide it over, and place it on the model. So this part's not too critical, getting your positioning right yet. Then we use our cotton tip again, and we simply just suck up some of this excess water. Okay, so now the decal's sat on the model, we can then move it where we want it. So you've got to be very gentle here. I like using a craft knife because it gives you a lot of control, but you've just got to be careful you don't damage the decal. We'll sit the decal right there. So once we're happy with that positioning, we get our little cotton swab again, and then simply just roll it over the decal. And what this does is this pushes out any water that is sat in there. The decal may want to move around a little bit, so just be careful there. And there we go. So we've got our decal in place. So next step, we want to move on to our microsol. Is the dissolver. It dissolves the film. Very, very easy to use. We need our paintbrush, so we'll just get a very small amount of our microsol, and then with our microsol we simply just paint it on the decal, again very gently so we don't move the decal around. And all we want to do is just, we don't want to soak it, but we want just enough to fully cover the decal and a little bit around it too, just so it really soaks in. I'm going to leave that to sit for a couple of minutes just to let it soak in, and then we'll go on to the next step. So we want a fresh cotton tip again, and with this what we do is we roll it over like we did when we had the water on there, and then what we do is get the tip and just very gently push the decal into this curve. So you can see the decal is still moving because the microsol only softens it, it doesn't set it in place, so the decal will still move. Press it in here, and then so we've pressed the decal in, so you see how it forms on that curve quite nicely. So the next step, we'll just do it a little bit more to make sure it's in place. Cool. So the next step after that, we move on to our micro set. So micro set is the final part of the decal setting stage. Same as the microsol, we only need a very small amount. It's a little bit on the paintbrush. And then again, just paint it on the model. Try and go outside the model a fair bit. With the decal, even though the number 4 is just there, you've still got a film around it, so you just want to make sure that the film is fully covered as well. And again, this stuff will help make that film disappear into the model so you can't see it. So we put that on there and let it dry. Again, decal's still moving slightly, so be careful. And leave that on there to dry, and once it's dry, you'll be good to move on to the next bit of your modelling. Yesterday, I put this other decal on here, just to show then what can be done with a decal once it's set. So this decal's set in place, it's not moving anywhere. So what you can do, if you're weathering a model and you want the decal to look aged and used and falling apart basically, you just get, again, a scalpel blade. You've got to be very, very careful with it here because if you go too hard, you're going to wreck your decal. what we do is hold your model nice and firmly and get your blade, and then just very, very lightly, if you scratch away at an edge, you can just start to take off that top film, which will then remove a very small part of the decal. So if we do it just in a couple of places to show, and you can even just do a little gouge in the middle as well, just to try and make it look a bit more natural. Now, you can't really tell it's a number 4 anymore, but that's a good way to weather your decals and make them look more like they're part of a model if it's going to be an older, more damaged and older looking model, basically. So yeah, that's how to do water slide decals. There's, you know, a lot of different ways of doing it. That's how I like to do it. Seems to work. But yeah, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.